Hello, child of God. I hope you're having a good day. This is still a very heavy word that I want to share. It is based off a word I shared a few days ago, which spoke of reckless covenants. The quick context, God showed me that there are some of you where there's been relentless attacks against your life, relentless attacks against your blessings, your virtues, your destiny. And God wanted to show that although there are people reinforcing, knowing that they could not attack you as one single individual, they went and reinforced, came together, formed covenants. And what God was saying is they're entering into reckless covenants where they're putting themselves in danger. They're putting their own destinies in danger, putting their lives in danger. However, because there is such a fixation to see your downfall, they are allowing themselves to ignore what God is saying about the reckless covenants that they're entering into. In this video, what God showed me is beyond just backbiting one another, beyond just consuming one another. Paul in the book of Galatians chapter number 5 says, "But if you bite and devour one another, beware lest you be consumed by one another." And God showed me that there is so much of biting one another, consuming one another, devouring of one another that is happening in the kingdom of darkness, and it's very destructive. And in this video, we are going to unpack exactly how this is happening. Why this is important for you, beloved, is because you need to see that the kingdom that is fighting you is not as strong as they make themselves out to be. The kingdom that is fighting you is not as organized as they want you to perceive them to be. The kingdom that is fighting you is not as fortified as they would have you believe. The kingdom fighting against you is not as fierce as they would want you to believe. And God is bringing this exposure. God is bringing this revelation to his children so that there can be a correction. There can be a right believing about what the enemy is doing, because as children of God, we cannot allow ourselves to walk in fear. So you're going to see a lot of exposure that is happening. A lot of seers are talking about it. A lot of people that are prophetically inclined are beginning to talk about exposure, alarm bells of exposure that is happening. And the reason why God is doing it is because there needs to be a correction on how the enemy is perceived. Too many of the children of God have been appropriating fear, ascribing fear to an enemy that we have no business fearing at all. So in this video, beloved, we're going to talk about the transactions that happen in the kingdom of darkness. What God showed me, and everything I'm going to say has got scriptural backing, so stay with me. In the kingdom of darkness, there is a lot of transactions that happen. The enemy is not going to give anything for free. If I come to the enemy and I say, I am looking for riches and glory, I am looking for global visibility, I am looking for fame, I am looking for anything that is of value. Yes, I can get that with a transaction. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about, what are you going to give me? That is the position of the enemy. And what you give me must be valuable. It must be people. What you give me must be the destinies of people. What you give me must be the blessings of a child of God. What you give me must be the destiny of a child of God. What you give me must be the virtues of a child of God. What you give me must be the downfall of a child of God. So it's not just about money. It's way more than that. People, soul, their heartbeat is the currency in the kingdom of darkness. What I was shown is when those transactions happen, pledges happen. Here I am, give me fame, I'm going to give you this. Pledges happen, transactions happen. And when all of this is happening in the kingdom, there is credit notes that are being passed to say, okay, well, I'm going to get this, but let me reassure you that within the next 3 months, I will make sure that this person has been lowered from wherever they were standing. I'm going to make sure that this person's destiny has been dealt with. This person's destiny is no more. This person's blessing is no more. I will make sure that I completely destroy them in order for me to get the virtues and the blessings that I'm looking for. So here I am, I get the fame that I want, or I get the money and the riches and the wealth that I want, but there's a credit note. And the credit note says, yes, I'm going to get this, but I am returning with the destiny of this child of God in exchange for what has been given to me. And this credit note will remain intact until the transaction is complete. So although I may walk away with the ranking that I'm walking away with, because some of these exchanges, it's just an exchange to say, if you give me this higher spiritual ranking, I will make sure that I destroy the destiny of this individual. So the person may get their spiritual ranking, but there's always a credit note to say, okay, so when is the payment going to happen? When is the transaction going to be fulfilled? And what God showed me, beloved, is when all of these transactions are happening, and there comes a time of fulfillment, and the transaction is not fulfilled, the enemy does not take prisoners. If you promise me the blessing of this child of God, I want the blessing of this child of God. If you promised me that you are going to destroy their blessing, where is the destruction of their blessing? However many months later, however long a period has passed, because the credit note is still standing. And if the credit note is not fulfilled, it means trouble for the one who gave the promise. It means trouble for the one who merchandised and said, I will make sure that I destroy this person in order for me to get my blessing, in order for me to get the fame, in order for me to get the visibility that I want. And when that transaction is not fulfilled, what Paul, the apostle, was talking about begins to happen. And what God showed me is that in certain circumstances, it has already been kicked off. The devouring of one another, the consuming of one another has already kicked off, beloved. I said I've got backing. I've got scriptural backing for everything that I'm saying. And I want us to read from the book of Habakkuk, however you want to pronounce it. It's basically the prophet in the Old Testament, which is after Nahum. Okay, so we are reading chapter number 2, and we are going to read the B part of verse 5. And it says, because he enlarges his desire as hell, and he is like death, and cannot be satisfied. He gathers to himself all nations, and heaps up for himself all peoples. Will not all these take up a proverb against him, and a taunting riddle against him, and say, Woe to him who increases what is not his. How long? And to him who loads himself with many pledges. Will not your creditors rise up suddenly? Will they not awaken who oppress you, and you will become their booty? Beloved, here the prophet is saying, they have enlarged themselves with the lusts of their desires. They cannot be satisfied. They have been gathering up the destinies of people for themselves. However, the creditors are rising against them suddenly. They are rising against them, and they are going to cause them to become their booty. Now remember, there's different rankings in the kingdom of darkness. So if you come and say, okay, I want a higher ranking, or you come and say, yes, I want this transaction, make me wealthy, make me rich, give me this, give me that, and I promise that I will give the destiny and the blessing of this person. If you don't fulfill it, you become the booty of the creditor, and the creditor rises up against you. Okay? Verse number 8 says, because you have plundered many nations, all the remnant of the people shall plunder you because of men's blood. I did another video which said not all blood is drinkable. And what God is showing me, beloved, is your blood is too precious. Your blood is too precious. And it is causing destruction in the camp of the enemy. Because their own creditors are rising against them. Because they went on to pledge with your blessing, to pledge with your virtues, to pledge with what was never theirs to pledge with from the beginning. See, there's a mark and there's a seal upon you that says, touch not. There's a mark and a seal upon you that says, this one belongs to God. This one is not to be messed with. And in their confidence, they thought that this was going to be so easy to fulfill. They thought that you were going to be surety, that you were going to be a pledge to be used in order to fulfill the transactions that they got themselves into. But they did not count on God being the fighter of your battles. They did not count on your blood not being drinkable. It's not me, it's in Scripture. They did not count on the creditors rising up against them before they could fulfill their transactions. They did not count on you being able to withstand the spiritual warfare and the attacks that were happening. They did not count on all of that happening. And so now, as Apostle Paul has said, the backbiting is starting within the altars and the covens. The consuming of one another is kicking off within their altars and covenants. The very consuming of one another has already been triggered within their altars and their covens. So, child of God, you stay yielded. If God has called you into a time of praise and worship, continue. If God has called you into a time of intercession, continue. If God has called you into a time of prayer and fasting, stay yielded to whatever God has called you to do. You keep your hands clean. And as I have always said repeatedly, God has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what is happening in the altars and in the covens. It is their own credit transaction system crumbling. Their own credit and transaction system crumbling. So you stay yielded to God, beloved. Don't walk in any bitterness. You are far above bitterness. Stay yielded to God and watch God continue to cover you, continue to protect you. You are so loved by your Father. You are deeply loved by your Father. Until the next video.